about specifically that have hurt us recently, legislation, is one is dropping the minimum amount that you have to go out and hit the not the Fair Labor Standard, but the Prevailing Wage Act laws that was dropped from, I think, about 50,000 or 45,000 down to 25,000. That in itself is an unfunded mandate for schools. Now we have to go out, and you can look at it a lot of different ways, but it will hurt us on the revenue side of things. The other one, and we haven't seen the legislation get passed on it, would be is in the area of air quality in schools. Nobody will argue about air quality, but when they set the mandate of where that needs to be, then we have to fund it, and that becomes very difficult. So those are I think some of the ones that Joan is talking about are kind of the fringe type of mandates that we struggle with.
Okay, so as the discussion goes on this, if they amend it to a point where it's specifically talking about new mandates that come forward, we're much more amenable to that than we would be, okay, to as it is stated right now with new crossed out. Okay.
Well, my preference would be more, if it's more suggestive of some of the operations versus actual
instruction.
Correct.
Okay.
Affecting curriculum or instruction.
Right. Okay. Well, this will be an interesting one, I bet.
Yeah.
Yes.
Good.
It can really change from, the way
What
they
you start with to what you end with.
To the way they want it adjusted.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay,
On Resolution 1105, the words "in isolation" were added. What did you mean?
If you look at 1104, that resolution does include student poverty as a factor, along with the discontinuation of school levy credit, first dollar credit, and the minimum amount of state aid for every student. That's Tony Evers, the superintendent's fair funding for our future. So when it's in isolation, we just were not sure if this would possibly hurt us. When we look at all of that together in a package, the fair funding, Toma benefits from that program. I don't know if
Does 1104 make 1105 unnecessary?
possibly if 1104 is passed, but if it's not passed, then 1105 may be.
Okay.
I think from our
Yeah.
point of view, as you look at, and this is what's happening a lot to the school funding, is it's getting dissected. So you're picking and choosing where the money is going to go. So in this scenario, now if there's school districts that, and I'm not questioning the need, but if it's going to come from our piece of the pie, I have concerns for that on the finance side of things. And when the original funding formula was built, they didn't have all these little pieces that took money from here to there. And the fact of the matter is there's not a lot of new dollars coming in. If they're new dollars, that's another thing. If they're the same dollars and it's just a redistribution of the pie, we start to get a little concerned. Because, as we know, we have been fortunate. We're the 31st lowest spending district in the state of Wisconsin. We get aided at about 70 cents to 75 cents on a dollar we spend. We don't want to see that change.
Okay. So essentially what you're thinking may happen is that if 04 passes, 05 may not even be an issue. But if 04 does not pass, Toma does still benefit from 05. Well, I mean,
Potentially.
Well, absolutely,
No.
absolutely you would with the levy credit and the first dollar credit, because the levy credits were implemented as part of a benefit to the taxpayer on behalf of school district funding as a credit. The problem with that is that we don't see it in our equalization aid formula. It's a separate credit that we receive when we look at our tax bills. 2 years ago when they set this biennium budget, actually it was a previous one, they set the budget, they took that tax levy credit, and if you remember, they settled the budget very, very late. And what they did with that funding that was supposed to go into the equalization aid formula, they put in the tax levy credit. And that tax levy credit is more beneficial to districts in the Milwaukee area than it is for Toma. And if you actually look at that, we actually lost money, state aid funding, than rather receiving money. So I think we're very supportive of the school levy credit distribution, meaning let's get what was ours and bring it back to Toma rather than distributing it on the levy credit and the first dollar credit there.
based on that, reading 1104, I think we're good. 1105 in any scenario doesn't seem attractive to me based on its wording. It's too vague. It opens up too much to committee after the resolution passes to really define it. It's not defined.
Well, they need to tell us how the money's
How it
going to
would
be
be-
distributed.
So, yeah, I think
Correct.
1105 would be a no-go
Okay.
in any scenario, in my opinion. Unless 1105, we want 1104 to
Four to
go.
go.
1105 doesn't seem to have enough written in it unless they amend it on the floor.
So unless they can specify where that money is going to come from and go, we don't want 05.
Yeah, it's pretty vague. I think your point on 1108 is good too, Cindy. We don't know what libraries are going to look like in the future, and to tie us to having to fund it at a certain level.
Everyone else thinking that on 1108 also?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Although I love books, I tend to think that we don't know what it's going to look like in the future.
Very true. And we were all okay then with 10 and 11? That made sense, I think, at 11. And then 12.
Doug, can I go back to 1116? I totally
11 what?
understand 1116.
Are you down there?
Licensure of charter school.
We're at
We're at
11.
12.
Oh, we're still, oh, I thought we were doing all the 11s together. Okay, sorry about that. I'll wait.
Well, yeah, we're at 11, 12.
We're at 11, 12.
I thought we were just doing...
I'm sorry, Mary Ann. So this is the open enrollment limits on virtual charter schools.
Yeah, that's the future, and we can't.
I don't think limiting that is to our benefit down the line.
We need to create it. Just clear my throat, sorry.
I think that's our feeling, that we know that online learning is part of how education will take place in the future for kids in high school, most likely. So we